What's up, my comic comrades? Today we're continuing our journey down DC's death metal event with Dark Knight's death metal Rise of the New God. It's a one-shot that gives us a little insight to what the Darkest Knight has been up to with his brand new god power, but more importantly, like the title of today's episode says, it introduces a brand new character into not only the DC multiverse, but the Omniverse. That's a big deal. And it's so important because I personally feel like said new character, along with an old familiar character, were acting as the real world voices for what's going on with DC Comics and all their changes recently. And the fear of DC cutting their titles by more than half in the near future, changing the landscape of comics in general. But we're about to get into all of that as we break down this comic. So grab a snack, your favorite drink, and sit back as we talk some comics. And as always, there's gonna be spoilers for the entirety of this issue. The issue starts off telling us for an untold millennia, the new god Metron sat upon the Mobius chair, a passive observer of the grand story of creation. The chair gifted him with near omniscient sight and understanding, a powerful cosmic awareness that he bore alone and guarded fiercely. Metron believed the chair was the key to unlocking the ultimate mysteries of the source, the great energy of creation that lay beyond the barrier at the end of his universe and lived in all things, the power from beyond whose unseen hands have created the multiverse. Metron died with the mystery still burning in his hands unanswered, the great story unfinished. And now his chair sits tampered with and broken, its power harnessed by a nightmare set on ending the grand story once and for all. The comic goes on to tell us the dark multiverse was never meant to be part of the order of things. Its impossible worlds, twisted echoes of their cousins in the multiverse above, were the refuse of the World Forge. And now reality quakes in response to its new dark god, recently bestowed with nigh omnipotence. And every being feels it from one end of the universe to the other. We even see the refugees the Green Lantern Corps saved from the Death Metal Multiverse's end comic. We then learn that in the sphere of gods, the last great powers shudder at this new god's might. They want to believe he could still be stopped, but there remains only one who could rival his power: Perpetua, mother of the multiverse. As we see the Darkest Knight stand across from Perpetua, ready to square off. That's right, as one assumed, the end of the death metal event is probably going to come down to Perpetua versus the Darkest Knight, and the battle starts right here. The Darkest Knight, formerly the Batman Who Laughs, says, "I want you to know something before I kill you. It hurt every time I had to praise your name, every time I bowed to you, every lie I had to tell you to bend you to my will. I was always going to be the apex predator. I was never going to be satisfied with playing second fiddle to you." Perpetua replies, "I am older than this multiverse, you foul creature. You were nothing but a nightmare from the dark." The Darkest Knight then says, "That's right, I'm your nightmare," as he stabs his fingers through her arms. He then continues to say, "I'm where your story ends," as the battle of the gods begins. Then on the next page, we see a brand new character breaking through the multiverse with a caption saying, "The battle rages across every facet of reality," drawing the attention of all those powerful enough to bear witness. The comic continues to say, "Few notice the surge of alien energy that rips through the fabric of space-time, not from the bleed, but from the overvoid. As Earth sits in a greater universe, which itself sits in a greater multiverse, this dying multiverse sits in an even greater Omniverse." And it has been watching, as we see a cosmic Ghost Rider looking motherfreaker come through the very fabric of space and time. Then on the next page, we see the Darkest Knight and Perpetua continuing to battle, literally throwing planets at one another. While this mysterious new character says, "Oh dear, this is progressing much too quickly. Two Omega-class cosmic entities could collapse the entire system before the survey is complete. I will need to perform my function quickly," as he teleports himself to the hellscape, formerly Themyscira. He then goes down to where Wonder Woman has been keeping the Joker since the beginning of Death Metal, grabbing him by the neck through his cell saying, "Are you the one whose presence drew me here?" And while continuing to look at the Joker, this mysterious new character says, "No, you are cosmically insignificant, a strange nuisance on your world. It's a wonder why they allowed you to live." And the Joker just responds, "Hey, mister, why the long face? Oh, I've got it. You must be the Batman who stuck your head in the oven. That must be it." To which this new character says, before bringing himself to the Psycho Pirate's cell. It's here we learn this new character's name. He tells Psycho Pirate, "I am called Chronicler. I am a functionary of the source of all things. And I require information," as he opens up his briefcase, pulling out a book saying, "Where the others only remember echoes of what has come before, you remember each iteration of history between crisis-level events. You know the way this world has changed." Then while reading his book, he says, "The Codex Omniversa is recording the history of this world as we speak, from the collective memory of your fellow Earthlings. But the information you hold is unique, and I require it." As he takes all of Psycho Pirate's memories, we see montages of the different eras of DC continuity, from the Golden Age to the Silver Age, all the way to the modern age of DC. And then as the Chronicler is absorbing all this information, he says, oh my, this multiverse is remarkable. I have seen many die, but they are rarely so colorful. I wish I could learn more about these beautiful characters and their stories." He then grabs the Psycho Pirate by the collar and says, "But you don't have any more to give me, do you?" The Chronicler then says, "The stories do seem to be worth remembering, but they have not been cared for." And Psycho Pirate says, "Wait, is this really the end?" And the Chronicler replies, oh yes. The Chronicler goes on to say, which means there's not much more time to waste before this incredible multiverse is gone. There is more I must learn, as he teleports away. We then see the Chronicler teleported himself to Vril Dox, the son of Brainiac, because let's face it, if anyone has information about different worlds in the multiverse, it's gonna be Brainiac, the dude who literally collects information and worlds. Long story short, Vril tries to make a deal with the Chronicler in exchange for the information he holds. Vril literally says, information must be the only true omniversal currency. Let's make a deal. Chronicler replies, I am pleased you have so much to offer. I admit this job has captured my interest more than I expected, but I am not authorized to make deals with the dead, only to record and move on. At which point he forcibly takes the information, sucking it out of his eyes, much like he did with the Psycho Pirate. At this point, the Chronicler is like, I don't understand. There is so much power in this multiverse. How could it be allowed to get corrupted to the point of destruction? This is a place of heroes and villains, of cosmic fairy tales that should go on forever. And that right there, friends, is one reason why I feel like the Chronicler is basically becoming our voice. The voice of the fans. Because again, we all know things are going on with DC and AT&T, who bought them out in 2018. They've had massive layoffs earlier this year, as well as getting rid of their entire DC Direct/collectible division. And the future of their print comic books has been a thing of debate for the last year and a half. So the Chronicler saying that the DC multiverse is a place of heroes and villains, of cosmic fairy tales that should go on forever, I personally feel is a clever way for the writer to voice his/fan opinion and love for these characters. I feel like what I'm trying to say becomes a little more apparent towards the end of the comic book, so let's move on and get back to this theory later. After this, we see the Chronicler continue to watch the Darkest Night and Perpetua battle while standing on the moon looking at Earth. The comic then tells us he wants to hope for this multiverse. He wants to believe they have a future, but his presence says otherwise, and a greater power already is pulling him to depart. His codex filled with all histories recorded and unrecorded. He plays them over and over in his mind. And he makes a decision. The Chronicler then says, I don't think my superiors would sanction my actions here, but I require more than this multiverse is capable of offering me right now. I need clarity from one who has seen this universe as I see it now. An observer, as he digs a skull out of the moon, holding it in his hand, saying, wake up, little god. Wake up, Metron. That's right, this dude just resurrected Metron. Metron even says, I don't understand. Chronicler is like, you were destroyed some time ago. I have resurrected you. Metron then asks, who are you? And he replies, I am a cosmic functionary of the greater Omniverse, tasked with recording the last moments of dying multiverses. I am called Chronicler. I require context for this mess you have made. Metron then says, how long have I been dead? And the multiverse is dying? Who's at the heart of this destruction? So many questions. The Chronicler then points, saying, see for yourself. And the next page shows us Perpetua and the Darkest Night battling for the multiverse, as Metron and the Chronicler look on. Chronicler then tells Metron, you must understand, Metron, I have fulfilled my function for millennia upon millennia by your relative standards. Most of the stories I have written in my book are mundane. They speak of ordinary people succumbing to atrophy at the end of a long decay. But this multiverse is different. The stories are different, and now they will be ripped apart by nightmares rather than reaching a natural conclusion. You must help me understand. Metron basically says, all this information is new to me. Perpetua free, the dark multiverse unleashed, all the secrets of the multiverse laid bare, ripping it to pieces. I was just the passive observer with my Mobius chair. Chronicler then says, I do not understand. And Metron replies, you want to save it, don't you? You want to save this multiverse and make it right, in defiance of your function. Metron then comes to the realization that all the times he betrayed his function by meddling in the affairs of gods and mortals, lying to himself that it was in pursuit of knowledge, he did so to actually save the multiverse because he finds it rather beautiful. He goes on to say this multiverse is still serving its function, and it cannot truly die. It's a universe built on belief. The little mortals believe in gods, and so the gods exist. The gods believe in the source, and so the source exists. You are of the source, are you not? The source of creativity and creation that fuels all things in existence. You are above me on several rungs on the cosmic ladder, a being of the Omniverse, not a being of the multiverse. And still the source exists above you. Chronicler then says, yes. Metron goes on to say the multiverse creates incredible evil so that it might be overcome. And there's always something good enough to counter the ultimate evil to keep a balance. One day that balance will fail, and perhaps that day is today. But I am comforted by the notion that the source retains a record. And I take comfort even more in the fact that the one who came to take the record has become a believer in us. That means our multiverse will never truly die. It will live on, in stories and imagination, which at a cosmic scale makes it all real again. The Omniverse is infinite. It's potential limitless. In one form or another, even if we are fully destroyed, we live on. The Chronicler then says, are you certain? And Metron answers saying, of course not, but I believe. And I believe that if you saw the things the way I have, if you followed the grand story from the beginning to the end, you would feel the same. Chronicler, while looking at his book, says, I want to. And Metron then says, see for yourself, as he gives up all his information to Chronicler. The Chronicler then sees the grand story of creation from start to finish and all of its cosmic majesty. New emotions swell in his chest. He believes in this universe. He believes in these characters, and in that belief, they become eternal. And with that, the comic ends. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Especially that second to last page and bit of dialogue. It very much seems like they're talking about the legacy of DC characters in the real world, but doing it in a clever way to fit with the story. Metron even says that he takes comfort that the source takes a record and that the Chronicler is now a believer. That it means the DC multiverse will never truly die. It will live on in stories and imagination, which at a cosmic scale makes it all real again. The Omniverse is infinite, its potential is limitless. In one form or another, even if we are fully destroyed, we will live on. Now, you could say that we're looking into this too much, and that could very well be the case. But not only does what Metron just said make sense for the story, as Perpetua and the Darkest Knight are looking to destroy the DC universe, but it also fits in with the real world situation going on with AT&T and DC, as there's been rumbles that publishing may ultimately go away one day for DC Comics, or at least be very limited. And what Metron is saying to us seems like he's speaking to us, the fans, telling us no matter what happens, they will truly never die. They will live on in stories and our imaginations. Which, I mean, is true. We have countless decades of DC comic stories, so we can never truly forget the DC universe if something drastic happens to the comics. But let's continue. Metron goes on to say, the Omniverse is infinite, its potential limitless. In one form or another, even if we are fully destroyed, we live on. Meaning, even if the way DC Comics puts out their comics may change, or the amount of comics we get is a lot less in the future, we're still gonna get these characters in TV shows, movies, video games, and cartoons. As he said, its potential is limitless. They don't only have to make these characters in comics, they can do anything with these characters, and they have been for years. So again, I feel like this was the creative team's way of writing something that obviously works for the story, but also is kind of commentating on everything going on with DC Comics and AT&T right now. With all that said, I totally understand I could be looking into this way too much, and that very well may be the case, but I think it's worth at least bringing up because it's kind of weird how it does work for both the story and the real world events transpiring with DC Entertainment. Either way, I enjoyed this one shot. I thought it was a perfect tie-in for the death metal event, and very interesting as it brings up a lot of questions for the DC multiverse and its place within the Omniverse and fiction. Again, very interesting stuff that I'm sure Tim and I will talk more about on the Variant podcast. But now it's time to let us know what you guys think. Do you think there's more to the story than meets the eye, and that the creative team was commenting on the real world events going on with DC Entertainment? Because they literally work for the company and definitely see a lot more of what's going on behind the scenes. Or do you think it's just a coincidence? But besides even that theory, did you like the story as a whole? Because I sure did. Let us know in the comment section down below. And just like that, my comic comrades, that brings another episode of Variant to a close. But if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to check out this one right here. And if you like our channel, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. As I always say, it helps us out. But I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things comics.